Am I in the wrong for wearing a wedding dress at a wedding? So my friend 20 female and I 19 male have been friends for a few years, and she recently got engaged. A week ago, I got a DM from her for a small costume party she was hosting as a celebration for her getting engaged. I asked if there was a theme and she said there wasn't. I'm a cosplayer, so I had a lot of choices. I didn't want to rock up in an anime cosplay, so I thought it would be funny to go to an engagement party as the corpse bride. I arrived at her house yesterday and everything seemed normal. A few people complimented my costume and I was having a lot of fun. After 10 minutes, my friend's fiance walked out in a black tuxedo and announced that this was actually their wedding. Apparently, my friend saw a video of someone doing this and wanted to do the same. He asked us all to go to the backyard for the ceremony to begin. I went straight to him. I asked him if I should quickly go home and change my outfit and that I would get back before it started. He told me it was fine since I didn't know this was at the wedding. I trusted him and followed everyone outside. They got married and everything seemed good. The reception was just in their house again, so everyone just walked back inside and picked up where they left off. I tried talking to my friend and celebrating with her, but she kept making excuses not to talk to me. I assumed it was just because she was tired from the big day and wanted some alone time. I didn't bother her after that and the party soon ended. I got home and half an hour passed when my phone started getting notifications. I checked and it was my friend texting me. She was cussing me out and telling me how I ruined her wedding. I was really confused and asked what I did. That only made her more angry. She told me that it was basic knowledge not to wear a wedding dress to a wedding. I reminded her that I had no idea it was a wedding and that I asked her now husband if I should change and he said it was fine. She didn't respond, but I got a text from her husband. He asked why I would tell her it was fine. I told him that he said it was fine. Then he said how I should have just changed anyways and it's my fault that the two are now fighting over this. I tried texting her that I was sorry and if I had known I wouldn't have done it. I woke up today and saw that her and her husband had blocked me on everything. So am I in the wrong for not changing out of the wedding dress when I found out it was actually a wedding? Part 2. I wore a wedding dress to a wedding. Since they blocked me on everything, I didn't try to reach out since it would be a waste of effort. But I didn't block them back. If they wanted to talk, I was fine with it. 2 days ago, I was unblocked by my friend. She asked if we could call and talk about what happened and I agreed. She apologized for blowing up at me like she did, but also told me that she was still upset. I was only made aware because of the comments and now her that wearing wedding attire to anything wedding related is common sense. All I knew was no white on a wedding day. Honestly, after people informed me, I felt awful and downright stupid. So I apologized back for not running it through with her like I should have since I didn't know. I know lots of people were telling me to cut her off, but I've known her since I was 14. I'm so glad that we can stay friends. Her husband, on the other hand, he had told her that he came up to me and asked me to change. And apparently I told him that it didn't matter because I was already there. Or something along those lines. She was crying a lot while telling me this. After she blew up at me, I told her the real story. She got pissed at her husband. The husband suggested that both of them block me so that the fight would stop. She agreed to it but was still upset by it all. Eventually, she started asking people who were at the wedding to see what happened. 3 people saw me walk up to him and heard me ask. This is where she learned that her husband had lied to her. Again, a huge fight between the two. Turns out, he's hated me since I met him 5 years ago. They had already been dating for a year beforehand. I became good friends with her, but not him. He felt as though I was trying to take his girlfriend. I don't know what I did to make him feel that way. She's beautiful, but I never do that shit to anyone. I don't know why he'd wait 5 years, but he decided the day of his wedding was the best time to get rid of me. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with them in the future. She's staying at another friend's house until her and her husband are able to talk about it.
Storytime about how my father blamed me for getting R-worded. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's that I made on Instagram. I started college 4 months ago. Little context. My parents are extremely strict with me. Never let me date or even have guy friends. I have zero social skills with guys. I can't tell if they like me. I can't tell if they're trying to take advantage of me. I can't even talk to boys. I've never even kissed a boy. Because of all of that, I wanted to live on campus. My parents didn't want me to. I decided that I wanted to. Luckily, my best friend got into the same college, so we decided to dorm together. The very first week, we got invited to a party. This party would turn out to be the worst night of my entire life. We both got ready and looked amazing for the party. We were dressed really well and our hair and makeup was done. When we got to the party, we were offered drinks right away. And boys were swarming us. Oh yeah, and did I mention I had never drank before? 2 drinks later, I was falling down. My best friend was trying to take care of me, but she was also drunk. That's when a guy comes up to me and asked me if I wanted to sleep it off in his room. Guess what happened? To his Storytime about how my father blamed me for getting R-worded. Disclaimer is not my storytime, it's me on Instagram. At this point, my best friend and I are both drunk. I literally felt like I had no control over my limbs. I just kept falling down. Suddenly, a guy comes up to me and asks me if I wanted to sleep it off in his room. Because I have no social skills with guys, I thought he was just being nice. I thanked him and he walked me to his room. He sits me down on his bed and proceeds to tuck me in. I asked him if he could bring my best friend, and that's when he said that she had left the party. That is a total lie. My bestie and I would never abandon each other at a party, especially if we were drunk. When he said that, I decided to get up from the bed and he pushed me back down. He tucked me in again and that's when I fell asleep. I must have slept for about an hour. When I wake up, he's still there watching me. That's when he said, "You slept for an hour." Then he just throws himself on top of me, starts kissing and grabbing at me and tearing off my clothes. I'm still drunk at this point and feeling super weak and dizzy. It was like the more I said no, the more he wanted it. And then he penetrated me. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how my father blames me for getting R-worded. Disclaimer is not my storytime, it's that I mean Instagram. That's when he forces himself on top of me and penetrates me. I'm feeling super dizzy at this point and I proceed to throw up on him. But it's like it didn't matter. He still kept going. Luckily, it only lasted for about 10 seconds because he you know what. Once he got off of me, I was full of vomit, my clothes were half ripped off, and I was trembling uncontrollably. He looks at me and says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you vomited." And he undresses me and puts me in the shower. And the whole time, I couldn't move or say anything. He gave me a change of clothes and took me back to my apartment. apartment. After that, he wouldn't stop texting me. It's like he thought that I liked it. 2 days later, he asked me out on a date. When I said no, he got offended. He shows up after my classes to walk me to my next class, and he tries to steal kisses from me. The worst part is when I told my parents, my father blamed me. He said I shouldn't have gone to the party. My parents are very traditional. Now my dad is thinking marriage. He wants to meet him. So I invited my rapist over for dinner. What should I do?
My husband took me to a creepy party that his friend hosted, and now I feel uncomfortable around his friends. I'm 28, he's 28, and his friend's 28. My husband has this group of friends who he's very close to. They all grew up together and still see each other regularly. They've always been nothing but nice to me for the entire 3 years that I've known them, and before this had never made me feel uncomfortable in any way. On Saturday, it was his friend's birthday, so he invited us to his party. At the party, there was a table full of gross things like you would see on a survival show, and these men were paying some girls to eat them, and they were filming it and laughing at them. My husband intentionally kept me away from that side of the party, but at one point, I needed to use the restroom and I couldn't find him after, so I ended up there. When I was there, this random guy came up to me and tried to get me to eat one of the nasty things. He was pretty aggressive about it. One of my husband's friends saw me and told the guy, "Not her." And then he asked me where my husband was and made a joke about how he shouldn't have let me out of his sight. He then stuck to me like glue until we found my husband again, at which point he whispered something to him and then left. I feel so repulsed and creeped out by the whole thing. I literally had a nightmare about that party. It doesn't help that I spoke to one of the girls and she said she had no idea this was going to happen before she got there. The dilemma I have is that we see them often. We're supposed to see them in 2 weeks, but I feel so uncomfortable just at the thought of having to be around them, especially the host. Honestly, I see them all differently now, and it's even made me see my husband slightly differently, even though he never participated. I feel like I'm doing a horrible job at explaining it, but the whole thing was extremely creepy to me. I don't know how to tell my husband this. Those friends are like family to him, and I feel like refusing to go will cause tension between us and make him feel like I'm forcing him to choose between me and his friends. Any advice on what to do? Part 2. My husband took me to a creepy party that his friend hosted, and now I feel uncomfortable around his friends. So I was supposed to see them 2 weeks after my original post, but I got out of it. My anxiety was sky high and it made me physically sick, so I had a legitimate reason for skipping the event. It took me a long time before I actually gathered the courage to say anything to my husband about what happened that day, even though he had been asking multiple times before I was okay. When I first told him, he was super understanding and promised nothing like that would ever happen again. While he was upset when I told him I didn't want to be around his friends, he told me that he understood and wouldn't force me. Also, he already knew what happened with the guy who approached me. His friend told him. All he would say was that he handled it and it wouldn't happen again. He continued hanging out with his friends separately, and eventually they asked him why I was never there anymore, and he told them. They did reach out to apologize and justify the party, but I never responded to any of them. Things were starting to get better until recently. My in-laws hosted a birthday dinner for my husband. I asked my husband if his friends would be there, and he told me that it was just going to be family. When we got there, his friends were all there. I ended up leaving the dinner without telling anyone because I couldn't handle being around them when they were all trying to act like nothing happened. I did text my husband when I was in the Uber, but he was pissed at me when he got home for leaving the way I did. We had a big fight, and I ended up locking him out of our bedroom because he wouldn't drop it. He's still angry at me over what happened, but I'm pissed at him too. During the fight, he said that I need to get over what happened and that his friends wouldn't hurt me. He kept telling me that I had nothing to be worried about because he was right there and he wouldn't let anything happen to me. I got really at him and asked him if I had nothing to worry about, like I had nothing to worry about at the party because I was married to him. I asked him would he still say that if we weren't married, or if I would have been fair game then. He implied I had misunderstood what was happening at the party, that I had worked myself up over nothing and I was being ridiculous. Am I in the wrong for leaving my husband's birthday dinner because I didn't want to be around his friends without saying goodbye? My boyfriend won't let me break up with him. I feel like I'm stuck in a relationship that I don't want to be in. 8 months ago, I, 22 female, met my boyfriend, 32 male, and we hit it off instantly. The age gap was definitely intimidating at first, since the oldest I dated was 26. However, since we had a lot in common, I was able to look past it. After a little over a month, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and while I said no at first, I hesitantly agreed later. Honestly, looking back at it now, he was very persistent and does not ever take no for an answer. Fast forward to today, we've been together for nearly 7 months. However, since then, we've had way more downs than ups in our relationship. This is my first proper relationship and I'm also a virgin, which he knows because I want to save it for someone special. I've had flings in the past who were super persistent, but I've always kept true to myself. I want to do it with someone who I genuinely love and see a future with. Not him. My friends have a theory that he won't allow me to break up with him because he still hasn't slept with me. I don't know how true that is. Unfortunately, I realized quickly in the last few months he's not someone I see a future with. I've tried to break up with him 3 times over the space of 2 months, and every time I say it, he immediately shuts me down, calls me annoying, and argues I say things on purpose to get on his nerves. I'm sick and tired of this relationship and we argue all of the time. I don't even know why he thinks it's healthy when we argue 95% of the time. Every time I bring this up as a reason to break up, he says that we don't have issues and that everything is perfect between us. I'm so miserable because I don't know what to do anymore. I've stopped going out and don't respond to any of my friends. I mentioned that I need space recently and he got annoyed and said that I do this way too often. I just don't want to be with him anymore. The way he dismisses everything that I say makes me feel silenced. When I try to break up with him on the phone, he literally said that I can't do that and that I have no choice in the matter. My friends keep telling me to break things off and are complaining that I'm still with him, saying that I'm leading him on and I have no backbone. However, I'm genuinely terrified of him because he doesn't seem to want to let me go, and I've had nightmares that I was forced to stay with him until I'm old. I can't even escape him in my effing dreams. He tried to find my address recently since he doesn't have it. My parents would have a heart attack if they knew that I'm seeing someone who's 32. But I'm keeping that away from him since he said if I ever ignore his message, he would come to my house personally. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing myself each day in this relationship. I honestly wish I never met him. I feel like my life is out of my control. Please help.
Am I the asshole for making my teens 16 male and 14 female share a bedroom? My husband unexpectedly passed away a few months ago, and I became a single mother to 3 kids. Their ages are 16 male, 14 female, and 2 female. Well, due to the significant decrease of income, I was no longer able to continue renting where we were. All I can afford is a 1-bedroom apartment, and currently I'm sleeping in the living room with my youngest 2 female. I gave the bedroom to my 16 male and my 14 female, and I asked them to share in the meanwhile. I tried adding a privacy screen in the middle so they feel they have their own space, but they're upset. Am I the asshole for making my teens 16 male and 14 female share a bedroom? Each of my kids used to have their own room, so honestly, this is a massive change for them. I've been looking for a better paying job for months and so far had no luck, and I can't get a second job because I can't afford daycare. Neither of my kids 16 male and 14 female are willing to help and say my youngest is not their responsibility. But then they have the nerve to complain about the room situation? What? I know it's not ideal, but I don't know what else I can do. I've literally been not eating anything for 2 days a week and just telling the kids I'm fasting. But the truth is I can't afford it and I've been going to the food bank.